This Honourable House now resumes its sitting. Call of the roll.
Mrs. Holness? Mr. Bartlett? Mr. Holness? Dr. Clark? Dr. Chang? Mr. Montague? Mr. Shaw? Mr. Samuda? Ms. Grange? Mrs. Williams? Mrs. Malawu-Fort? Dr. Tufton? Mr. McKenzie? Mr. Chuck? Mr. Vaz? Mr. Warmington? Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terrelong, Ms. Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Goldin, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Henry Kitts, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Morrison, Miss Morrison, Mrs. Anita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright, Mr. Clark, Mr. Montague, Mr. Witter,
Statements by ministers. Announcements.
Mr. Wright. Laid on the table of the House today are the following. Annual report of the Scientific Research Council for the year 2020-2021 and the Auditor General's Department Certified Appropriation Account for Head 5639 Post and Telegraphs Department for the year 2015-2016.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions.
Madam Speaker, at the expiration, I beg to give notice that at the expiration of 21 days, I will ask the Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal and Environment and Climate Change the following questions. Similarly, while I'm on my feet, Madam Speaker, Member Burke is unwell. She's asked me to move a motion for her. I beg to give notice that at the expiration of 21 days, I'll ask the Prime Minister and Minister of Economic Growth and Job Creation the following question, standing in her name.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move the following motion. Whereas in the 19th century, Jamaica enacted the Offences Against the Person Act of 1864, based on the 1861 English Act, which made abortion illegal and subjected any person who intends to procure miscarriage to life imprisonment with or without hard labor. And whereas a pregnant woman who acts the same way concerning her pregnancy is subject to the same penalty. And whereas on January 15, 1975, the Minister of Health, the Honourable Kenneth McNeil, took steps to amend the law and clarify when an abortion would be legal in Jamaica by tabling Ministry Paper number 1, titled, I quote, "Abortion Statement of Policy," end of quote. But the law was never amended. And whereas in 2005, in keeping with the United Nations Millennial Development Goal of improving maternal health, the Minister of Health, the Honourable John Juno, established an Abortion Policy Review Advisory Group, chaired then by Dr. A. Wynand Patterson, to reduce maternal mortality and morbidity in Jamaica by 3/4 by 2015. And whereas on February 19, 2007, Dr. Patterson submitted the Abortion Policy Review Advisory Group final report to the Minister of Health, the Honourable Horace Daly, citing the conditions under which the medical termination of a pregnancy will be lawful in Jamaica, seeing that the Victoria Jubilee and the Cornwall Regional Hospitals were experiencing a relatively high incidence of young, poor, unemployed women who had resorted to the quote-unquote black market to access medically induced methods to terminate their pregnancies and needed treatment for near-fatal effects from complications arising from their actions. And whereas the findings of this report also recommended that the relevant sections of the Offences Against the Persons Act be repealed and replaced with a civil law titled, I quote, Termination of Pregnancy Act, end of quote, stipulating the conditions under which the medical termination of a pregnancy would be lawful in Jamaica. And whereas, Madam Speaker, on January 15, 2008, the Minister of Health, the Honourable Rudyard Spencer, tabled the Patterson Abortion Policy Review Advisory Group final report in Parliament, which led to the parliamentary appointment of a special select committee which reviewed the report along with the public, leading to the submission of draft recommendations. And whereas these recommendations, which included repealing certain sections of the Offences Against the Person Act and substituting it with a civil law, were never debated. And whereas in 2018, this Honourable House referred the Abortion Policy Review Advisory Group final report to the Human Resource and Social Development Committee, chaired by Reverend Ronald Thwaites, for consideration and report. And whereas in March 2020, Reverend Thwaites tabled this committee's report, but it was never debated as Parliament dissolved on August 11, 2020. And whereas nearly 50 years, several ministers of health and several parliamentary committees later, there has been no legislative decision since the tabling of Ministry Paper number 1 in January 1975 to leave the 1864 Offences Against the Persons Act to criminalise abortion in Jamaica. Be it resolved that this Honourable House debate the report of the Human Resource and Social Development Committee report tabled by the Reverend Ronald Thwaites in this Honourable House on March 25, 2020. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sittings of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business.
Madam Speaker, if I may, Madam, with your leave, I need your guidance as to where to properly slot this. But our closest neighbor suffered a very unfortunate explosion and the destruction of a hotel and the loss of some lives in the capital of Havana. I know that this House would want to express its sympathy and solidarity with the people of the Republic of Cuba on the loss of life and the massive explosion that occurred in their capital city.
you have actually twisted both my hands because
On the adjournment.
you have already done it, and it's an important item for us as a parliament to take note of. So with that, I invite on the motion of the adjournment for us to further allow other members to express our sympathies and with what has taken place. But I thank you very much.
And I thank you for your astute guidance, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Very well. We're now at public business. House Leader.
Yes, Madam Speaker, today it is our intention to continue the sectoral debate. The Honorable Daryl Vaz, Member of Parliament and Minister of Science, Energy and Technology, will be our first speaker, and he will be followed by the Member of Parliament for St. Mary's Central, Dr. Morais.
Minister Vaz. And you do have permission to speak from a seat other than your own minister. I know it.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for preempting me. Madam Speaker, I commence this my second sectoral address as Minister of Science, Energy and Technology with a grateful heart. Indeed, it is without question that God has been good and equally merciful. I thank him for having brought all of us through what is undoubtedly a testing period. And Madam Speaker, it would be remiss of me if I didn't pause just to say that although I'm not at 100% health today, and thankfully it is not COVID, it has made me reflect on what has transpired over the last 2 years as it relates to the pandemic and the effect that it has had on the world and, of course, our beautiful island, Jamaica. In speaking to the minister just before my presentation, I asked him to give me the latest figures. And I can tell you that he advised me that the recent World Health Organization numbers is that over 15 million persons have passed, unfortunately, during this pandemic worldwide. And right here in Little Jamaica, we are hovering on 3,000 deaths. Madam Speaker, we must not forget the pain and suffering that has taken place by so many who have lost loved ones. Each and every one of us in this parliament knows more than one person that has passed as a result of the pandemic. It has had a devastating effect not only on life, on our education system, on mental health, and every aspect that you can possibly think of. And I pause this afternoon to give my sympathies to all those who have lost loved ones and who have been adversely affected, including financially, during this unfortunate period. Many of us, there you go. So, Madam Speaker, I thought it would be important to start on that note. Madam Speaker, I pause at this moment also to give recognition and to show gratitude. First of all, to congratulate both you in your elevation to Speaker, and of course, the Deputy Speaker. Two beautiful women have taken those two positions at the same time. The Most Honorable Andrew Hone is Prime Minister of Jamaica, whose vision and leadership is a constant source of inspiration and strength. And I thank him for having the confidence in me to allow me this portfolio. My life partner, Anne-Marie, and my beautiful family, whose love and support are ever present and unfailing. And my only advice to my other colleagues in the House who may not yet have tied the knot is that it's not advisable to have your wife or your husband in the politics at the same time as you. We're working it through. My constituents and the councillors, the leadership of West Portland and by extension Portland, whose continued confidence has allowed me to serve in such a pivotal role in the leadership of this country. My dedicated permanent secretary, Mrs. Carol Palmer, on whose perceptive leadership I rely heavily to advance the work of the ministry. My advisors for science, Dr. Paris Leo Ayi, Mr. Wayne Chen for energy, and Mr. Keith Duncan for technology, and my boards that fall under the ministry. The leadership and staff across the ministry, its departments and agencies. And last but not least, our international and private sector partners. It would be remiss of me not to acknowledge my parliamentary colleagues on both sides of the political aisle, as well as the clerk to the houses and the entire staff. Their contribution to advancing the nation's business continues to be greatly appreciated. Madam Speaker, in Jamaica's 60th year of independence, the creation of an enduring legacy in science, energy, and technology is paramount for the advancement of the nation. The legacy we speak of is one that sees science taking place within the society as a primary system in confronting our many health and environmental challenges. Madam Speaker, our people must know, understand, and accept it for the role it must play in improving our quality of life. The legacy in energy that this government is seeking to create is one that must fuel our growth through efficiency, diversification, and alternative sources. This is a society where energy is in varied forms, in sufficient quantities, and available at reasonable prices. Madam Speaker, the legacy in technology that we are creating is intended to create a society where paperless and electronic means are the norm, where the intensive use of technology is evidenced across all sectors, and our people not only use it, but master it. There is no better time to orchestrate this than now. It is not lost on me, Madam Speaker, that the ministry which I lead is central to Jamaica's development efforts. Science, energy, and technology are critical to engineering a technology-enabled society and guaranteeing energy security and efficiency, two important outcomes under Jamaica's National Development Plan, Vision 2030. The landmark year of 2030, to which many of our growth objectives are tied, is fast approaching. This is a time to incorporate the whole of country and whole of government approach we speak of so much to get this job done. Madam Speaker, we have been through an unprecedented 2 years since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. There were moments of despair, anguish, and uncertainty, but in the face of adversity, we did not relent. And we are stronger because of the indomitable Jamaican spirit, which rises to every occasion and causes us to triumph. Madam Speaker, in my sectoral presentation today, I will share how this ministry has been building Jamaica through the creation of this legacy in science, energy, and technology. My presentation will comprise 3 sections. Based on the portfolio areas, I will speak to the most notable achievements with each portfolio and the outlook for the new fiscal period. Madam Speaker, I will begin with science. Madam, living in the 21st century, as a people, we have been granted the opportunity to experience firsthand the power and significance of science. As the world continues to grapple with the novel coronavirus, science has repeatedly shown itself as our key defense against a raging pandemic, responded to this unprecedented challenge through the provision of critical information to promote knowledge and sound decision-making. The ministry remains cognizant of the role in science creating new knowledge, improving education, and increasing the quality of life of our people. It is based on this premise that the commitment was made in my 2021-22 sectoral presentation to take deliberate steps towards staffing the science division of the ministry in facilitation of the proper strategic leadership of the portfolio. The ministry is pleased to report that senior management personnel within the division are now in place. It is the work and commitment of our stellar team of professionals that have set us on a path of creating an enduring legacy in science. Madam Speaker, the scientific literacy of our citizens will equip them not only to make informed decisions, but also to understand those decisions of government that are founded on scientific information. Our citizens must learn to speak and understand the language of science. To this end, the ministry, its agency, and departments commenced ensuring this legacy in science through the building of a scientifically literate society, beginning with our children and adolescents. Last year in this very house, I placed my colleague minister, the Honorable Fable Williams, on notice that the ministry will be implementing robust programs for the popularization of science in schools. Madam Speaker, notice issued and action has been taken. Several programs have been designed, revised, and implemented to ensure the popularization and understanding of science in schools, as well as its promotion as a viable, rewarding profession. The National School Science and Technology Society, the SSTS program, more popularly known as the Science Club, has been a feature in over 700 schools since 1996. It is geared towards providing avenues for our youth to be immersed and garner great appreciation for science. This program has been revitalized and refreshed through the efforts of the Scientific Research Council. The SSTS now involves a yearly program of activities, including regional meetings, CSEC, CAPE, and PEP workshops, essay debate, performing arts competitions, and national science and technology fairs. Additionally, Madam Speaker, 40 science, technology, engineering, and math ambassadors have been trained to provide mentorship and resources to teachers and students. The Conversation in Science series, also hosted by the SRC, is another means by which science is being popularized. This series provides an opportunity for the science professionals, members of the public, and students to interact with the view of strengthening their understanding of science. For the period, 3 such sessions have been held, reaching over 800 individuals. Mentorship has also been added as a key feature to the promotional activities for science. The Classroom to Real-World STEM Mentorship Workshop is a collaborative effort between the Ministry, the SRC, and the National Commission on Science and Technology. The workshop allows students at a tertiary and secondary level to receive mentorship from renowned STEM professionals. As a recent initiative launched with students from the University of the West Indies, the program is showing great promise and is anticipated to be a game changer in our efforts to create interest in science among our students. Madam Speaker, the programs and activities geared towards the promotion and popularization of science will be ramped up during this fiscal period. Specifically, the Biennial Science and Technology Conference and the National Innovations Award will be hosted by the Ministry, the SRC, and the NSST in November. The NCST will also see the revival of the National Medal and Innovation Award ceremony to acknowledge scientific achievements and encourage creativity and innovation. I wish, therefore, to make a call to all innovators, creative thinkers, entrepreneurs, and scientists to be in readiness to submit their innovative products for the recognition and celebration. Madam Speaker, this ministry is doing the work to create an enabling and supportive environment that will guide, strengthen, and improve the existing science, technology, and innovation (ST&I) landscape through policy. The Science, Technology, and Innovation Policy prioritizes the application of science in agriculture, health management, environmental resource and conservation, education and training, and disaster risk management. This Honourable House will recall the commitment given by this ministry to advance the ST&I policy, which was at a green paper stage, to the white paper stage. Madam Speaker, so said, so done. The ST&I policy was tabled in this House as a white paper on February 10, 2022, and the implementation of the activities is now in train. The mapping of the ST&I ecosystem is the first set of activities associated with the policy. The UNESCO Global Observatory of Science, Technology and Innovation Policy Instrument Program, GoSPIN, through the Planning Institute of Jamaica, has confirmed technical support for the activity, as well as the recruitment of a local consultant to complete preparatory work. The International Center for Environmental and Nuclear Sciences, ICENS, continues to do commendable work in the support of climate change initiatives. Recall the regional project assessing atmospheric aerosol component in urban areas to improve air pollution, for which Kingston Metropolitan Area, the KMA, is being sampled. Madam Speaker, aided by the National Environmental and Planning Agency, 154 samples have been obtained so far, with 20 samples currently being analyzed. Also, Madam Speaker, ICENS continues to forge a path of first world cutting-edge research and development, which focuses on finding solutions to global problems such as climate change and food security. On the agenda for the new fiscal year is harnessing the power of nuclear technology through the completion of a multi-purpose gamma irradiation facility. This will assist our national development, particularly in agriculture, medicine, industry, research, and education. In the short term, this facility will be integral in two major international Atomic Energy Agency technical cooperation projects, which are of vital concern to the country. The first is crop improvement through the use of experimental technologies in Jamaica, which will significantly contribute to food security. The second project will be integrated vector management approach, which will aid in controlling the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, which are vectors of human pathogens such as Zika virus. Madam Speaker, science has also been active in the support of our entrepreneurs in the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector. For the period, SRC supported a total of 110 production cycles with the MSMEs, spanning the industries of food manufacturing, beauty, and personal care. This is by no means a small feat. The support offered by the SRC has facilitated the production of various products such as juices, flavored waters, sauces, jams, herbal products, and meat processing. Additionally, 56 products formulations are ready to engage the marketplace thanks to science and the SRC. As science moves to also ensure our food security, more than 71,000 clean, robust, and disease-free plants were propagated. Madam Speaker, over 11,000 were handed over to various farmers. These crops include various types of pineapples, bananas, yams, ginger, and sweet potatoes. Work continues using tissue culture and the biotechnology applications to develop more disease-resistant crops, and this will be made available to farmers within this new fiscal year. Madam Speaker, Jamaica played a pivotal role in the hosting of the 6th meeting of ministers and high authorities of science and technology. This took place on December 7th and 8th, 2021. The 6th REMSET meeting allowed for ministers and high-level authorities in science and technology of the Organization of American States to exchange ideas and best practices with the goal of increasing economic and social development of the OAS member states. In addition, Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to advise that Cabinet gave approval for me as Minister to assume the chairmanship of the Organization of American States Inter-American Committee on Science and Technology, COMSET, for the next 3 years, 22 to 24. This will be formalized at the next meeting of the Inter-American Council for Integrated Development, CD, scheduled for May 31st, 2022. Assuming chairmanship of COMSET will position Jamaica as a key player in the global science, technology, and innovation landscape. Madam Speaker, this scientific literate is bearing fruit. Madam Speaker, let us turn our attention to energy. The world's energy systems are changing rapidly. Global energy sectors are shifting from fossil-based fossil-based systems of energy production and consumption, such as oil and natural gas, to renewable energy sources like wind and solar. In recent months, the need to fast-track this transition rose to even greater prominence with the invasion of Ukraine. The world stood in a state of uncertainty as sanctions imposed on Russia threatened a potential global energy crisis. Madam Speaker, even before this very unfortunate occurrence, Jamaica's energy transition, diversity, and ultimate energy security was high on the list of national priorities for the ministry and the government. The approach which has been taken is both measured and steady to ensure the facilitation and creation of a legacy which includes a modern, diversified, environmentally friendly, and sustainable energy sector. Madam Speaker, in light of this, the mandate of the ministry has shifted from the achievement of a 30% renewable energy mix for electricity generation to 50%. An integral aspect of achieving this goal, Madam Speaker, is an enabling and adaptive policy and legislative framework which mirrors the transition and developments taking place in global energy. The development of this framework will include the review of the existing or the implementation of new policies and legislation, as well as the review of the license of the Jamaica Public Service, which is up for renewal in 2024. Madam Speaker, the Ministry has made significant progress in advancing the policy, legislative and regulatory framework related to the sector. During the financial year, the Ministry continued the consultation process on the latest draft energy from waste sub-policy. Comments were received from NEPA, the Attorney General's Department, Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, and the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. The policy document is now being updated to reflect the recommended changes. The Ministry is also collaborating with DBJ, the DBJ's Integrated Solid Waste Management Enterprise, to bring these initiatives to practical application. The Ministry has been seeking to engage a consultant to review and update the 2009 to 2030 National Energy Policy. This is to further safeguard against world market energy price shocks, as well as to improve energy security and protect consumers on the grid. In light of the recent mandate given to the Ministry by the Prime Minister for the energy sector, the recently concluded Integrated Energy Plan will be subject to another urgent review. Similarly, up for review is the second Integrated Resource Plan, the IRP2. Madam Speaker, you would recall that in February of this year, updates were given on the following bills and regulations: Petroleum Downstream Activities Bill, Petroleum Amendment Bill, Electricity Amendment Indemnification and Validation Bill, Electricity Amendment Bill, the Electricity Net Billing Regulations, and the Electricity Wheeling Regulations. Work is advancing in earnest to table these bills and regulations within this financial year. Madam Speaker, a modern and robust legislation is critical as we seek to diversify the energy mix to include increased renewable energy for electricity generation, lessen the dependency on fossil fuels to increase energy security, reduce carbon emissions, and ultimately achieve affordable energy. In this regard, recall that a Joint Select Committee of Parliament has been established to review the Electricity Act 2015. Over the period, the committee received oral and written presentations from various private and public sector organizations. The committee is currently reviewing these submissions with the support of my ministry, the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel, and the Legal Reform Department, along with the AGC, the Attorney General's Chambers. The legislators and technocrats supporting the committee have been working assiduously to review the submissions. This is with the intention to make recommendations to Parliament also within this financial year. Madam Speaker, as promised, the government electrical regulator is now fully operational. Its establishment facilitates the closure of the Government Electrical Inspectorate and the institution of a new system to regulate electrical installation and inspection processes in Jamaica. As of March 31st, 2022, the GER processed and added to its portal a total of 608 registered electricians and 174 electrical inspectors.
Just a moment, Minister. There's a very heavy murmur in the Parliament, and the Minister is doing his presentation. Please, members, can we just tone it down? There's a heavy murmur, not just a light murmur, a heavy murmur that's taking place.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The numbers are set to increase significantly over time based on the application process that accepts and processes applications on a year-long basis. It would be remiss of me, Madam Speaker, not to acknowledge the challenges which have been experienced by homeowners and developers with regards to the cost of electrical inspections. Madam Speaker, the GER and the Ministry continue to actively monitor the situation in the marketplace and encourage individuals to lodge formal complaints concerning the conduct of inspectors. Also, we encourage members of the public to visit the GER Resource Center on the Ministry's website for a listing of all registered electricians and private electrical inspectors to aid in comparisons and negotiations of prices. The Ministry, Madam Speaker, has also consulted the Fair Trading Commission on the matter, which has provided recommendations not limited to increasing inspectors across the geographical area, advising inspectors to advise relevant and material information to consumers as per the Fair Trading Commission Act, advising trade associations to refrain from discussing prices as this may amount to collusion and price fixing, and lastly, embarking on a sensitization and public education program which targets consumers. Madam Speakers, these recommendations are being advanced as we speak, with the public education campaign slated to be launched within the first quarter of this new financial year. Non-technical loss reduction. Madam Speaker, we turn our focus to the electricity sector. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continues to drive an increase in consumer demand for electricity. Electricity generation increased by 2% during the period, with the renewable energy share of electricity remaining at 13%. The alternative energy share based on liquefied natural gas, LNG, also remained at 59%. Presently, non-technical losses, which include electricity theft, account for approximately 18 to 20% of electricity generation. Madam Speaker, at this juncture, I would just like you to permit me the opportunity to respond to my colleague and friend, spokesman on mining and energy, who stated that the government seemed not to be concerned or had plans with regards to the issue of electricity theft mitigation. In fact, this ministry has been receiving technical assistance from the USAID and its lead consultant, Daryl, under the Strengthening Utilities and Promoting Energy Reform Super Program. In 2021, USAID and Deloitte established a working group comprising MSET JPS, the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, and the Inter-American Development Bank. This group has come to a consensus on a set of strategies and policy concepts to address the issue of non-technical losses. The concepts are grounded into 4 categories: energy efficiency programs, which will reduce the demand from illegal users; communication and reporting, which will build trust between relevant entities and encourage cooperation in loss reduction activities and objectives; empowerment, which will provide consumers with the tools to acquire legal electricity; and the enforcement, which will discourage the theft of electricity through prosecution capabilities. The first activity to be implemented is a house wiring initiative conceptualized under the empowerment category of the solutions. In addition, IDB is funding a national electricity loss reduction plan consultancy for Jamaica. This is being conducted by Estudios Energeticos Consultants, EEC. The IDB's non-technical losses audit consultancy with the EEC is allowing the government to collaborate in conducting an energy loss independent audit report and preparing a national electricity loss reduction plan. The ELIR will focus on the factors that impact the level of technical and non-technical losses at the national, parish, and feeder levels. While the NELRP will define the roles, action, and time period, benefit costs, targets, and other elements needed to reduce losses. Madam Speaker, also in relation to the public sector energy and efficiency conservation program, during the budget debate recently held, the opposition spokesperson on finance and the public service, my colleague, called for an update on the public sector in energy efficiency and conservation program. He also noted that the program had stalled. I wish to remedy this inaccuracy by reminding my colleague that the program ended in the fiscal year 2020-2021. Not only did it end, but it achieved all its objectives under the scope included and not limited to the installation of AC retrofits at the Kingston Public Hospital, Jamaica Information Service, Tax Administration Jamaica, Donald Sangster Building, Montego Bay Revenue Service Center, Office of the Prime Minister, Ministry of Finance and Planning, the Blood Bank, and the National Public Health Lab. The installation of mini-split AC systems at 7 facilities, Jamaica College, Edna Manley College, St. Andrew High School, Montego Bay Community College, Monique Teachers College, Greater Portmore Police Station, and the Hart College of Hospitality Services, Runaway Bay Hotel. And finally, the implementation of the Energy Efficient Survey for the public sector workers has concluded a 73% awareness level. Madam Speaker, the Ministry's active energy efficiency program, the Energy Management and Efficiency Program, is a collaborative effort between the IDB, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, the European Union Caribbean Investment Facility, and the Government of Jamaica. In more specific terms, a component of the program aims to reduce electricity consumption within health, educational, and other public sector facilities, reduce travel time and avoid fuel consumption through improved traffic control management, and to support the development of Jamaica's 20-year electricity plan. Madam Speaker, by way of elaboration, retrofitting of government facilities including health, education, and public agency facilities. The component includes the retrofitting of 80 government facilities with renewable energy and energy-efficient interventions. These interventions include solar photovoltaic technology, LED lighting upgrade, and energy-efficient air conditioning technology. The structural and electrical integrity assessment of 12 hospitals, 10 schools, and other public office buildings have been completed to support this effort. So, Madam Speaker, the 80 government facilities will be completed over the course of the next 2 years at a value of $30 million United States dollars. Madam Speaker, I think you'll find this and my colleagues interesting. The implementation of the urban traffic management system in the Kingston metropolitan area. A contract was awarded for the implementation of the urban traffic management system in March 2021, and the project is now 86% complete. Full completion is expected by May 27, 2022. This UTMS project is being implemented in the KMA. The UTMS seeks to modernize and automate the traffic management system and to reduce travel time and fuel consumption by 30%. The project involves the installation of additional CCTV cameras, license plate video detector cameras, and overhead variable messaging signs. This will inform and warn motorists in near real time and modernize the traffic interconnection network with the fiber optic cables upgraded and the IT hardware and software. The integrated resource plan, the development of Jamaica's 20-year electricity plan. The integrated resource plan, the IRP, is a comprehensive decision tool and roadmap for meeting Jamaica's electricity need over the next 20 years. The IRP is being developed with considerable public involvement from the OUR and the JPS, government agencies, the wider Caribbean community, CARICOM, customers and industry advocacy groups, project development, and other third-party stakeholders. Madam Speaker, we have completed the first iteration of the IRP and are now on to the second. Electric mobility. Madam Speaker, the government is doing its part in ensuring the development of a thriving electromobility environment. The foundation work to drive this sector is currently underway with the establishment of the Electric Vehicle Council and the drafting of the e-mobility strategic framework. I am pleased to report that Cabinet has approved the strategic framework for the electric mobility, which will guide the introduction of electric mobility in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, you would have heard the Minister of Finance speak to it in his budget presentation. We are now waiting on the fiscal policy framework, which we expect to come to Cabinet hopefully by Monday of next week. And once that is done, then we'll be in a position to actually outline to the country the new electric mobility policy. What I can say on that is that the manufacturers of these electric vehicles will not consider Jamaica or any other country until a policy has been tabled as a government policy. So we are hoping to have that done, and once that is done, we will start to see the inflows of electric vehicles, and as the Minister said, there will be some form of concessionary duty rate to encourage the use of this vehicle. Not zero, but close. Madam Speaker, in pursuit of the targeted 50% renewables on the grid, the main drivers of this target are to achieve lower carbon emissions, to ultimately achieve net zero emissions and carbon neutrality by 2037, to reduce the vulnerability and variability associated with fluctuating costs for oil and gas. Madam Speaker, as a reminder, you would have heard before that the generation procurement entity has been given the mandate to undertake the procurement of the new electricity generation capacity to include renewables. In light of this, the GPE has been creating strategic partnership with the entities such as the World Bank and the IDB. This is in an effort to develop rules and guidelines, increase technical and institutional capacities, and improve the evaluative procurement and generation capabilities. The GPE is at an advanced stage with the IDB for technical assistance. We anticipate that the request for proposals will be issued by the second quarter of this fiscal year. And I see my colleague shaking his head. It's about time, but remember that this is something that has taken time because the generation procurement entity was a brand new entity that was given the mandate by Cabinet. So it's not as simple as it may sound. But you have my word that all assurances that the second quarter we'll be able to go to RFP. Madam Speaker, other renewable energy initiatives which the Ministry will play an active role in is pumped hydro storage project and the electrification of public sector fleets. Again, as we move to our oil and gas exploration, I note the comments of my opposition colleague on energy concerning his beliefs that at this juncture, drilling should have taken place. Madam Speaker, I wish to assure him, and by extension the Jamaican populace, that the government has not lost its appetite for this project. Rather, this government is doing its due diligence to ensure that a high investment exploratory activity of this nature returns fruit. Technically, it would require about a year to prepare and plan to safely drill a deepwater exploration well. Additionally, in order to begin planning for such a well, committed funding would need to be concluded. Madam Speaker, though not at the drilling phase, our oil and gas exploration efforts are advancing steadily. You will recall United Oil and Gas completed an agreed technical work program designed to address the risk associated with the frontier license arising from the marketing campaigns under the license holder, Tullow Oil. Some of the major activities completed under the technical work program included the prospective resource audit, where the sub-consultant, Gaffney Klein and Associates, audited 11 prospects and leads across the license. The audit verified the presence of multiple prospects and leads with potentially 2 billion barrels of petroleum resource across the license. The well cost and the development scenario screening, where sub-consultant oilfield production consultants undertook a scoping analysis of the anticipated future cost of the drilling and exploration well on the main prospect. The cost range determined, Madam Speaker, are between 23 million US and 28 million US for the exploration well, and between 40 and 48 million for additional appraisal and development work in the success case. Also included in the program was the petroleum systems modeling, where seismic interpretation and petroleum modeling were done on the Morais Basin section of the license to predict the likelihood of hydrocarbon generation and migration in the basin. The onshore and offshore seep sampling, both onshore and offshore near Blowers Rock. A satellite seep study, which is a visual inspection of recent satellite imagery across the license, leading to new offshore areas with potential being identified. And lastly, a regional hydrocarbon source rock study along with tectonic reconstruction. United Oil and Gas also undertook an extensive marketing campaign even while under pandemic constraints, the result of which produced over 6 points of interest which are being actively pursued under confidentiality agreements. So, Madam Speaker, with the understanding of this global upswing in exploration coupled with the additional unforeseen global pressures on the energy market, the Ministry sought and received Cabinet's authorization for a further extension for United Oil and Gas license for additional 24 months. This is in order to take advantage of the potential increase in exploration interest in the medium term. The Ministry cautiously anticipates a play opening exploration well declaration by 2024 as the oil industry looks. 2024. Second? To start. They have 2 years to start. Actually, to start the drilling. Yeah. So, Madam Speaker, I note the sentiments of my colleague concerning the sources of oil from Venezuela. Madam Speaker, I welcome the suggestion of my colleague, and I can commit that they will have a discussion at length about the matter. I, however, wish to make note of another source of oil which the Ministry through Petrojam is actively pursuing. Petrojam participated in the 4th session of the Nigerian Jamaican Joint Commission, which took place over the period February 22 to 24. Madam Speaker, the main discussion at the meeting concerned the finalization of the Memorandum of Understanding on Oil and Gas Cooperation between Jamaica and Nigeria. Arising from this meeting, the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources of Nigeria expressed its willingness to sell LNG to Petrojam once there is a capability of receiving same at Petrojam. Additionally, discussions with the group's managing director of the NNPC have opened up the possibility for the purchase of oil from Nigeria. Madam Speaker, I'm once again forced to address the utterances of the opposition spokesperson at this time as it pertains to the action with regards to the recommendation of the Zaka report. There is no truth to the claim that Zaka report is gathering dust or it is on pause, or that the government's response has been one of inaction. While recommendations concerning the privatization of future of the refinery is still before Cabinet for deliberations, those which concern the refinery's operational efficiency have not been stymied. Rather, they are actively being pursued. One of the urgent recommendations of the report concerned the appointment of a fully functioning board with an appropriate mix of private and public sector individuals, and this House will record in November 2020, the government made good on this recommendation through the appointment of an 8-member board headed by Mr. Wayne Chen, reflective of the conditions outlined in the report. Since the institution of this board, Petrojam has been set on a path towards the implementation of improved terminal operations, pricing regime, cost reduction strategies, and other recommendations as noted in the report. As it pertains to improved terminal operations, several initiatives have been implemented to further its improvement, particularly as it relates to demurrage costs. A proposal to the Bureau of Standards has been developed for the restructuring of the certification of cargo at the Montego Bay terminal in relation to cargo being carried by third-party vessels. Current operators cover cargo delivered from Kingston Refinery to the Montego Bay terminal. Therefore, this proposed new protocol will address and facilitate more testing in Montego Bay, as well as reduce the time taken for sampling of cargo on marine vessels. Madam Speaker, the refinery is also pursuing an increase in the capacity of the main dock to take advantage of the 14-meter draft channel. This would enable Petrojam to receive significantly larger cargoes, reducing the number of third-party vessels calling Petrojam and ultimately reducing the number of opportunities for demurrage. The potential crude voyages reduction is estimated at 33% with this venture. Additionally, an initiative is underway for the refinery's Montego Bay operation to be supplied directly from imports, lifting larger cargoes. This results in making fewer calls and the discontinuation of the operation of the combined carrier Round Island time charter vessel. Also being implemented as per the recommendations are the cost reduction strategies, which form a part of a larger operations improvement program. Madam Speaker, Petrojam is moving to advance this recommendation, has issued a request for proposal for consultancy services to assess, develop, and implement a plan to improve its operational performance. Arising from this process, Solomon Associates was a successful bidder. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, the advancement of this consultancy has been derailed. This is due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has negatively impacted the financial performance of the refinery. As this fiscal year's prospect for improved financial performance appears likely, efforts will be made to advance the program as soon as conditions are favorable to do so.
Madam Speaker, I now ask that the standing orders be suspended to enable the Minister to continue his speech to its conclusion, notwithstanding the time limit on speeches. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is that the member be given sufficient time to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I strategically left technology to the end because I know it would have the most attention of the members, especially with all of these Wi-Fi hotspots that they have been getting, and what more they are looking forward to. So I would estimate, Madam Speaker, that I probably have another 2.5 hours for completion on that one alone. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It must be noted, however, that in lieu of the consultancy, Petrojam has pivoted to interim cost reduction measures. These include curtailing overtime expenses, administrative costs, and expenses associated with utilities. Of notable mention is the refinery's commissioning of a new well to serve its water utilization needs. This has contributed significantly towards the reduction of water-related expenses. Madam Speaker, Petrojam has also taken the necessary steps to maximize the processing of sweet crude to reduce the production of heavy fuel oil and increase production of the more marketable low-sulfur fuel oil. In fact, this has been a part of the current refinery's operating strategy since December 2019, which predates the publication of the Zaka report. As it concerns the matter of long-term supply of sweet crude feedstock, Petrojam entered into an arrangement with Petrobras, the state oil company in Brazil, in August 2019 for the supply of sweet crude. Based on the demand, there is still a need for high sulfur fuel oil, and therefore higher sulfur crude is sourced from the spot market and Petroecuador. In addition, there are ongoing efforts to secure additional low sulfur crude oil options from other suppliers, particularly state oil companies. Madam Speaker, further action has also been taken to address the feasibility study to determine the process plant improvements requirement for the refinery to process extra light crudes such as Eagleford and Pormian. I'm able to report that the International Refinery Consultants Muse Stancil was commissioned to evaluate the way forward for the refinery. The study, including recommendations, was completed in 2021 and submitted to the Petroleum Board of Directors and the Ministry for deliberations and decision-making. I must also mention, Madam Speaker, that the recommendation to report the impact of oil price adjustments separately on the refinery's financial is currently documented as part of the process. Madam Speaker, recall a joint petroleum working group was established in October 2021. This group has been making noteworthy strides. In this regard, it has been agreed on the recommended minimum economic rate for tanker drivers for $1,000 per hour based on the industry norms in relation to the hazardous material and risk factors. This represents a 270% increase in relation to the lowest rate paid to tanker drivers, which equates to about $730 per hour, or the equivalent of $14,640 for a 40-hour work week. I think that needs to be repeated. It has been agreed in recent months that the recommended minimum economic rate for tanker drivers of 1,000 Jamaican dollars per hour based on the industry norms in relation to hazardous materials and risk factors. This represents a 270% increase in relation to the lowest rate paid to tanker drivers, which equates to previously $730 per hour, them earning $14,640 for a 40-hour work week, hauling flammable fuel in 2022 under 15,000 Jamaican dollars. So the next steps, the MSET and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security are collaborating to establish the Joint Industrial Council. The purpose of this council is to inform the structures required to maintain competitiveness in the view of the petroleum industry trends and the local and environmental factors. It will also seek to further improve working conditions for petroleum tanker drivers and ensure professional conduct of all stakeholders involved in the petroleum industry. Presently, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, for whom I had the pleasure of meeting with no other than the Minister recently, are preparing the terms of reference for the GIC as well as collaborating to prepare a cabinet note. Ministry of Labour and Social Security is also preparing a template to assist with the re-establishment of the Haulage Contractor Association. Madam Speaker, to facilitate the execution of its energy mandate, the Ministry has further bolstered its capacity with the addition of an energy advisor with 26 years' experience in the energy sector. We will continue to create this enduring legacy in the energy portfolio as we move into the new fiscal year. Madam Speaker, in the interest of time, there is a section of my presentation which speaks to the science energy portfolio outlook for 2022-23. I would encourage my colleagues to read through the presentation that will be handed out in the interest of time. Madam Speaker, now to what we call the technology side of the ministry, which will be my final part of the presentation. Our goal as a country is to become a digital society by 2030. Underpinning the creation of this digital society are considerations related to digital rights and responsibilities, digital privacy and security, digital access, and digital commerce. Madam Speaker, activities to advance these areas are already in progress, as evidenced by our various policies and plans that are in effect. Notwithstanding, the ministry recognizes the need to develop a single comprehensive digital agenda and roadmap to align the activities that must be undertaken in the short to medium term. In this regard, the Ministry has partnered with the United Nations Development Fund with a view of advancing Jamaica's digital agenda through the use of the UNDP's Digital Readiness Assessment Tool, the DRA. The DRA is a comprehensive diagnostic survey tool and serves the purpose of providing rapid, high-level insights into a country's digital strengths and weaknesses. The analysis of the responses from the survey administered in February 22 confirmed the need to develop a digital roadmap, upskill our people with digital literacy skills, and build out our digital infrastructure. These are the areas we are moving to advance as we speak. Madam Speaker, as referenced earlier, an important element of the creation of the digital society includes the digital rights and responsibilities and the digital privacy and security. To this end, the Ministry continues its focus on the development of a policy and legislative framework capable of accommodating the evolution of technology and the protection of the fundamental rights and freedoms of all Jamaicans. The passage of the Data Protection Act 2020 ushered in the establishment of the Office of the Information Commissioner. In my previous sectoral, I updated the House that the recruitment of the Information Commissioner was at an advanced stage and the House would deliberate on the compensation package. Effective December 1st, 2021, Ms. Celia Barkley assumed the role of Jamaica's first Information Commissioner. Additionally, an oversight committee was appointed, also effective December 1st, pursuant to the Data Protection Act. Since her appointment, the Commission has been taking steps to operationalize the office. While the process is still in train, the office has already been making strides in data privacy and protection arena. The OIC has been leveraging various public awareness strategies to facilitate preliminary consultations regarding the issues and concerns of different interest groups. Additionally, Madam Speaker, the office has been making introductory presentations to the Common Thread Network, a forum for data protection and privacy authorities of the Commonwealth countries, and directly engaging data and information commissioners within the region. This will later inform discussions and arrangements for data sharing and any guidance to be issued by the OIC to data controllers in different industries and sectors. The Honourable House may also recall my declaration that the Ministry will be undertaking a preliminary assessment of the Data Protection Act to identify notices, orders, or regulations critical to its initial operationalization. In this regard, the Ministry undertook the work to map all the provisions which would require supporting subsidiary legislation. With the assistance of the International Telecommunications Union, a consultant was engaged to assist with the preparation of drafting instructions. Madam Speaker, the preliminary drafting instructions have since been received from the consultant, are now being reviewed by the Ministry and the Information Commissioner with a view of finalizing those instructions by September 2022. Madam Speaker, in an increasingly connected world where data and information are the new gold, cybersecurity has emerged as a major priority. Therefore, the presence of modern and robust legislation is critical to our cybersecurity efforts. In this regard, recall that a joint select committee of Parliament has been established to review the Cybercrimes Act 2015. Over the period, the committee received oral and written presentations from various private and public sector organizations. Madam Speaker, the committee is currently in the throes of reviewing those submissions with the support, once again, of the Parliamentary Council, Legal Reform, and the AGC. The legislators and technocrats supporting the committee have been working assiduously to review the submissions. This is with the intention to make the recommendations to Parliament in short order. Recommendations, Madam Speaker, that acknowledges the gravamen of the impact of cybercrimes, but equally recognizes our international commitment and need for our law to remain as technologically relevant as possible. Madam Speaker, it is estimated that every 39 seconds a cyber attack has taken place. Within the Jamaican context, online threats such as ransomware, target attacks, malicious spam emails, malicious URLs, and scams were the most significant issues faced during the fiscal years. Threats which have been addressed by the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team in the Ministry. These threats are reason to be on the are reason to be on the rise due to the adjustment made by the ministries, departments, and agencies in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the resultant work from home requirements. While some MDAs have pivoted as their needs dictate, others still have some work to do with respect to the implementing security measures to protect their users and the systems. Madam Speaker, I use this opportunity to appeal to all MDAs and even our private sector partners to invest in the relevant security technologies to protect their data, as well as to invest in the user education and training. Of note of the education and training, JASCERT has also embarked on the public awareness initiatives to educate targeted groups on cybersecurity-related issues. These initiatives have led to direct engagement of more than 80 entities over the course of the last financial year. Additionally, the early warning systems implemented with the assistance of the OAS has allowed JASCERT the capability of seeing attacks in real time, monitoring the activities of attackers, and responding to them accordingly. This facility, Madam Speaker, provides invaluable insight into the attacks, which are used to provide assistance in reducing the likelihood of reoccurrence and shortening response time. As it stands, however, only a few organizations are party to the system. I'm appealing yet again for the MDAs to do what is necessary to protect their information. Madam Speaker, in the future, when we consider the access to technology that we enjoy, we will look back and remember that a foundation for this access was grounded in a national broadband network, island-wide internet access points, a modern agile postal communication network, and a readily accessible technological devices. Madam Speaker, this is how we are creating today the enduring legacy in technology. In 2021, in my 2020-2021 sectoral presentation, I spoke to the importance of the National Broadband Initiative in light of its immediate and long-term impact on the life and livelihoods of Jamaica. I also spoke to its ability to provide support for businesses as well as effect improvements in the efficiency and delivery of public services. I wish to remind this House that the National Broadband Initiative is being implemented in two phases. Phase 1 represents a response to the connectivity needs brought about by measures implemented to address the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 made it very clear, Madam Speaker, that the existing government and private sector infrastructure was unable to reach large portions of its citizenry outside of urban and major town centers with high-capacity internet. Therefore, there arose a need to build out an emergency fiber and microwave backbone. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to report that 95% of the fiber backbone that we intended to construct is now complete. With this backbone, Madam Speaker, along with the government wide area network, we'll be able to provide more schools and critical government institutions with high-speed internet access. At the end of the fiscal year, 13 parish courts were connected via microwave, and 9 parish courts and municipal corporations were connected via fiber. At least, as at last week, Madam Speaker, all municipal corporations are now connected via fiber. Last year, we were hampered in part by supply chain, which saw only 30 schools with high bandwidth usage being connected to the government's one by the end of the fiscal year. However, Madam Speaker, by August this year, another 100 high bandwidth schools will be connected as contracts to support the connection of these schools in the KMA and parishes of St. Catherine, Clarendon, and Manchester have already been awarded. The remaining 241 high bandwidth schools, Madam Speaker, will be connected by the end of this financial year. It is important for us to note that connecting the schools in this manner opens up a whole new world of possibilities in the delivery of services in the education sector, making more seamless activities such as central monitoring and management of closed-circuit television cameras for the school campuses, central monitoring and management of the school's Wi-Fi system, and reliable access to high-bandwidth applications such as video conferences. I wonder if the Prime Minister is here? Oh, just checking. Oh, just checking. Checking if you're here. Additionally, Madam Speaker, approximately 700 other educational institutions will have their services provided by a commercial provider. 441 of these schools are already in process of having their service provision, courtesy of a successful procurement undertaken by the Ministry of Education and Youth. In implementing this phase, Madam Speaker, partnerships have been critical as the government has benefited from access to utility poles for pole attachments, free access to dark fiber strands, and the use of aerial fiber optic cables, which together has resulted in the government gaining access to over 630 kilometers of fiber optic cable. Madam Speaker, it is important that we show what we can achieve when the government and the private sector work together. And I would like to pause to thank Cable and Wireless Jamaica, Digital Jamaica, JPS, and the operators of both toll roads and our community cable operators who have all come on board to help us to make this possible. Madam Speaker, just to tell you that the 630 kilometers, a large portion of that was done in conjunction with these providers, and for the most part at no cost. Special mention, Madam Speaker, is to be made of my colleague, Minister of Education, with whom I've had the pleasure to work closely to get us to this point, along with the chairman of the ICT Advisory Council, Mr. Keith Duncan. Let me repeat that, Madam Speaker. Special mention is to be made of my colleague, Minister of Education, with whom I've worked closely to get to this point. And as I said, my ICT Advisory Council Chairman, Mr. Keith Duncan, and the entire team. Also, Madam Speaker, the officers of the Ministry of Education, my ministry, eGov, and the Universal Service Fund, who meet every week, every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, to ensure that all aspects of the project are successful. 5 p.m. The National Works Agency, Madam Speaker, is a critical partner in the execution of this phase one. Separate from participating in the weekly meetings with the other ministries and agencies mentioned, its officers and technicians facilitate and oversee the laying and erecting of the fiber cables across the country. During this year, the ministry was happy to have procured and handed over a 2021 highest bus to assist them in this task. This was an effort to support the efficient and reliable transport of its fiber technicians and their equipment. Madam Speaker, phase two, a little more challenging, was conceptualized in recognition of the fact that a robust and financially viable national broadband network would require a proper due diligence assessment and a carefully planned scheme of implementation to transcend the urgent need for connectivity. Members of this House may recall that a task force chaired by the Honorable Michael Leachin was established to oversee the discussions, plans, and implementation of the national broadband network. The ministry is in the process of taking the necessary steps to implement the recommendations to include a more detailed due diligence assessment and robust interrogation of the financing model. This is with the intention to complete the due diligence and commence the procurement process by the end of this fiscal year. And colleagues, I will just mention to you that we are just about to go to the Ministry of Finance now, where we are hoping that we will be able to engage the IFC, who would undertake this entire process with maximum experience and, of course, not to mention reputation. So we are looking forward to that. We don't know what the model will be, maybe a PPP, but they will dictate based on all the research that we have done already. Madam Speaker, whilst achieving universal broadband access and ensuring its wider adoption is a feature of the activities undertaken by the ministry, its agency, as well as other MDAs, we recognize that a cohesive, consistent, multi-year strategy which identifies the stages of the rollout of the broadband infrastructure across the country and at the same time outlines the manner in which and the activities which will be used to stimulate broadband demand is required. To this end, the Ministry will be developing a national broadband strategy which will take into account work already undertaken by the National Broadband Committee and give keen focus to broadband demand and usage. It is anticipated that this costed national broadband strategy will be developed with the kind assistance of the European Union and the IFC by the close of the financial year. Madam Speaker, as we continue to increase digital access, eGov and the NWA have been spearheading the build-out and the expansion of GovNet infrastructure. This is being done with funding support from the USF and the Spectrum Management Authority. In this regard, eGov has developed the specification core networking equipment. The procurement of the said equipment through the IDB is near completion. The Ministry anticipates the full delivery of the equipment in August 2022, having experienced delays due to supply chain and logistics issues brought on by the pandemic. Additionally, the Government of Jamaica's sites earmarked for the hosting of this equipment as per GovNet design is 95% complete. Madam Speaker, in the 2022-23 financial year, eGov will focus on the further advancement of the GovNet infrastructure. This will be done through the build-out of the fiber network in the KMA, the build-out of the network core by receiving, installing, and configuring the networking equipment, the laying of the fiber cables across the KMA, and the connecting of 50 entities onto this network. Madam Speaker, it is a fact that we cannot deny. We have seen them in our constituencies and in our various communities. The USF is on a mission to enable a digital society through universal access to the internet and digital inclusion. The USF Connect Jamaica Public Wi-Fi initiative is geared toward providing free Wi-Fi internet access in major town centers, public green spaces, and parks across the island. As of March 31st, 2022, the USF has established 14 sites across the island, 5 of which were achieved during the 21-22 fiscal year. Madam Speaker, the USF will seek to establish 6 new public Wi-Fi hotspots during the 2022-23 fiscal years, and partnerships will also be forged with the tourism sector interests to protect provide technical and other support for the establishment of Wi-Fi sites in resort towns and tourist and historic sites. Further, Madam Speaker, the Community Wi-Fi Initiative connected 101 community Wi-Fi sites as of the end of March 2022. The remaining 88 sites will be completed by May 31st, 2022. So for those of you who fall in the last part, you can be assured that you only get one so far. That what? Only one? How much you got before me? None. Promise made, promise kept. Every member of parliament will get 3, and we have had some issues, obviously, but every we get. Hello, you got a lot of access sites. Thank you. So, Madam Speaker, yes, we had originally committed to have the sites done by March 31st, 2022, but as everyone knows, we have had supply chain issues and, of course, disruptions. Madam Speaker, we are still creating access through community access points. 7 sites were completed during the year, with the 8th site awaiting bandwidth upgrade before completion and handover. But importantly, Madam Speaker, we have not forgotten the disabled community. The vulnerable and disabled must be given the tools to thrive also in a digital society. Their connectivity to support educational business pursuits is therefore a must. And through the USF, connectivity has been provided to 3 sites to support the disabled community thus far: the McCain Child Care Development Center, the Salvation Army School for the Blind, and the Portmore Self-Help. And I put an emphasis on that because 3 still is way not enough to cover the island and give those persons the service. Madam Speaker, we would not have considered our goal achieved until every student and teacher has access to a device and the use of technology in the delivery of government services happens by default. In the field of education, the tablets in school, tablet for teachers, and the Own Your Own Device programs are testaments to how far we have come in achieving our goals. In my last sectoral presentation, I informed the House that approximately 40,000 tablets were distributed to grades 4 to 6 students enrolled in the PATH program. The momentum since then has still not slowed. During the 21-22 period, we procured a targeted 25,000 tablets for PATH students in grade 8 and 9. Of this number, over 16,800 tablets have been distributed to more than 90 schools. The remaining 8,200 tablets will be distributed during the first quarter of 2022-2023. Additionally, some 14,800 of the projected 15,000 laptops have been delivered to schools for distribution to PATH students in grade 10 to 13. No student is left behind. All ages, all stages. With respect to the Own Your Own Device initiative in partnership with the Ministry of Education, approximately 34,000 vouchers valued at $20,000 each have been issued. 30,000 parents and guardians have since redeemed these vouchers to acquire devices for their children. So that's 34,000 vouchers, of which 30,000 have been redeemed so far. I'm sure, Madam Speaker, that my colleague minister will agree that good things come in twos, and therefore happy to partner with the ministry for the phase 2 of the Own Your Own Device. Madam Speaker, in the 2022-23 financial year, the ministry will continue to partner with the Ministry of Education by providing support to initiatives such as the implementation of the school management system, the learning management system, and the technology in education and literacy in schools programs. In delivery of the government services, access to reliable, up-to-date, and relevant data captured with the highest level of efficiency and accuracy is critical to the policy development of decision-making. Just in time for our 60th year of independence, eLearning Jamaica is supporting the Statistical Institute of Jamaica in digitization of the 22 population and housing census. This is through the provision of tablets, charging cards, projectors, and power banks for the use in the execution of the census. No more paper, Madam Speaker. No more paper. To date, 7,525 tablets, 40 charging cards, and 4,000 power banks have been secured. The tablets are being loaded with the census and other needed software for effective data gathering. Madam Speaker, move to the postal services as I close. A major part of the transformation of the Post and Telecommunications Department into a modern, agile postal service provider involves the pursuit of technological solutions to automate its services. To this end, the PTD continues its acquisition and adoption of counter-automated systems to promote efficient, transparent, and accountable service delivery, as well as facilitate interconnectivity of administrative operational functions across locations. So far, they have connected 73 post offices island-wide with internet connection. With all that has been said regarding the creation of a digital society, a supportive digital economy which promotes innovation, creativity, and expands economic potential is required. E-commerce has become of significant importance in recent times, fundamentally changing the way products imaged, marketed, delivered, and sustained. In fact, the agencies of the ministry continue to lead the way by supporting electronic identity systems, expanding their e-commerce offerings, and digitizing licenses and service delivery offerings. The Electronic Transactions Act makes provision for a certifying authority to carry out the functions of issuing and regulating the use of public and private key infrastructures. A public key infrastructure refers to a system for the creation, storage, and distribution of digital certificates, which are used to verify that a particular public key belongs to a certain entity. The implementation of the PKI system is intended to revolutionize the way we do business and facilitate the creation and use of digital signatures for electronic transactions. This is critical for the transition to a paperless society. Jamaica's national PKI therefore incorporates policies, institutions, and technologies that will manage the distribution, authentication, and revocation of digital certificates, the digital equivalent of a handwritten signature or a seal. Madam Speaker, on December 31st, 2021, eGov was designated the certifying authority for the national PKI under the Electronic Transactions Act. As this Honourable House is aware, eGov is poised to transition to the ICT authority, and as such, its designation at this time is most appropriate. I'd like to thank the Trade Board for performing the functions of the certifying authority since the legislation inception. eGov was also instrumental in the development of the technology-based solution to support the delivery of government service by other ministries. During a period which characterized by restrictive but necessary COVID-19 measures, it enhanced the WeCare online application to accommodate other care programs such as the workers' grants, the vaccine grant, independent school grants, and the development of the Own Your Own Device online application for vouchers to assist needy students. The SMA's e-learning system, Madam Speaker, is now operational. This e-learning system is an end-to-end online system which will allow the SMA to obtain information on customers' applications more readily. It also supports online submission of payments for Spectrum license applications and facilities for shorter turnaround times for generating licenses. Madam Speaker, you will recall that the Post and Telegraph Department developed its own freight forwarding service, Click and Ship, to facilitate online shopping. In response to the surge in demand for commerce services, the PTD has increased its collection locations. Users of the service now have now have moved from 23 to 46 locations island-wide for which items can be collected. Again, Madam Speaker, in the interest of time, I would encourage my colleagues to look at the 2022-23 technology outlook, which I will just run through briefly since I'm at the end. Madam Speaker, in this financial year, the Ministry will aggressively pursue the following. Data protection, finalize instructions for data protection regulations by September 22. National Broadband Initiative, connect 100 schools to the government-wide area network by August 22 and the remaining 241 by the end of the financial year. Complete the connection for parish courts and municipal corporations to the government's network via fiber during the financial year. Accelerate the development of a national broadband and complete the due diligence and commence the procurement process regarding the national broadband network by the end of the financial year. Providing universal access to internet services will complete all 189 community hotspots by May 31st, 2022, establish 6 new public Wi-Fi hotspots by March 31st, 2023. Access to technological devices, continue the procurement and distribution of the technological devices under the Table in School rollout project, and continued support to the Ministry of Education initiatives such as the implementation of the school management system, learning management system, and technology education and literacy in school programs. And last but not least, advance the implementation of the GovNet infrastructure through the build-out of the fiber network in the KMA, build-out of the network core, the laying of the fiber cables across the KMA, and connecting 50 entities onto the network. Madam, in closing, as I bring this sectoral presentation to a close, I wish to reiterate that this ministry is committed to advancing all areas under its purview. Madam Speaker, as each period brings its own challenges, we are committed to stay the course as Jamaica must become a digital society, and technology and innovation must reshape Jamaica and its people. Madam Speaker, science must confront our many health and environmental challenges, and energy must fuel our growth and development through efficiency, diversification, and alternative sources. Madam Speaker, my ministry that I have the honor to lead is committed to building our Jamaica through the creation of an enduring legacy in science, energy, and technology. I thank you very much. Thank you, Madam.
Want to thank the Minister for his very comprehensive presentation and now invite Dr. Morais Guy to his presentation.
Madam Speaker, might I be permitted to speak from a seat other than my own, Madam Speaker? Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Almighty for strength and fortitude to serve the people of Jamaica, and in particular, the people of Central St. Mary, who have insisted on my representation for 5 consecutive terms. I also want to express my gratitude to him for guiding me in this capacity as opposition spokesman on health and wellness in service to the people of Jamaica. To my family, my wife Nadine, our children, Kimberly, who is here, and Morais, and our new additions to the family, my grandchildren, Alexander and Zachary, for providing the space for me to concentrate on representational politics while simultaneously balancing family life. I want to thank them sincerely for their forbearance and their long-suffering, Madam Speaker. To the constituents of Central St. Mary, both voters and non-voters, PNP and JLP and those without political affiliations, I pledge to continue giving them my best in advocating for a better standard of living and protection of your rights and freedoms. To my councillors and caretaker candidates, divisional chairperson, the constituency executive members, and all worker volunteers in Central St. Mary, I thank you for the continued faith and support you have given me. I want to thank the party leader, Mark Golding, for his continued confidence in me as opposition spokesman on health and wellness. I extend special thanks to members of my task force who have given me advice and recommendations over the period and have assisted me today in making this presentation. I want to acknowledge Jesse James Clark, who is my junior spokesman on health and wellness, who is in the gallery. A lot of what I do to carry the burden of the various responsibilities would not have been possible without the effort of my staff, who ensure daily that the work of the Office of the Member of Parliament is effectively carried out and maintained, and that I am safely transported from one engagement to another, safely, irrespective of the community or the distance. Chelsea Chin, Myrtle Parks, Ricardo Trooper Henry, and my security detail constable Anderson are dedicated public servants, and I'm indeed grateful for their presence and commitment. That's right. Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for your guidance and stewardship, yes, in this Parliament, and to my parliamentary colleagues on both sides of the aisles for your camaraderie and friendship. The bantering and jabbing have their place, and in the mix of things show that our parliamentary engagements are healthy for our democracy, Madam Speaker. She too. All right. Madam Speaker, I rise here to give my third presentation in this Parliament as opposition spokesman on health and wellness. In my last two presentations, I spoke about the parlous state of the health sector and that the COVID-19 pandemic, following on the heels of the dengue outbreak, had exposed the underbelly of the sector and revealed its vulnerabilities. 2 years have passed, and in the scheme of things, Madam Speaker, one would have expected that despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the government could demonstrate to the ill and suffering of this country that things have made a turn for the better. But far from it, Madam Speaker, things have made a turn for the worse. Many years have passed since 2016, in fact, 60 years. Instead, we have seen an attempt to portray to the nation via social media and public relations that things are hunky-dory. Despite his rosy assessment, the health sector is still facing critical challenges. The poor patient who has had to suffer the indignity of a crowded A&E, waiting days to get medical attention, sitting in a poorly ventilated tent and suffering from extreme heat, would tell a different story. This patient, perhaps, is one of those who waited for years to get a simple surgical correction and suffer the pains over the years to receive treatment. Madam Speaker, some come to this honorable House to pontificate that things are good. But still, if you were to canvass your constituents, take a walk in the street, in the hospitals, or speak to the healthcare workers, you would find that their reality is different from the one presented here. Sadly, Madam Speaker, they are confined to the margins, to living on the margins, where their health care is of constant concern. Before delving into the main topics of my presentation today, Madam Speaker, I would like to comment on the Minister's most recent presentation to this House. First, I want to congratulate him on a very good presentation. Sincerely. Touching on the many sectors' ills. Yes, you know that is going to come. That is going to come. Touching on many of the sector's ills and revealing big plans for improving the sector. Madam Speaker, I'm happy that the Minister has dusted off the UWI medical faculty's plans, discussed from as early as 2013, for the expansion of the University Hospital for West Indies, with the construction of a 6-story wing, and has now decided to run with it as a practical solution to the issues facing the entity and, by extension, the health sector. Indeed, Madam Speaker, this seminal teaching institution needs this expansion to create more clinical places for students and care for patients. The exposure on NCDs, the connection with our diet, and the consequences of our lifestyles on morbidity should crave and have craved our attention as a nation. Madam Speaker, the increased spending by the National Health Fund on drugs for the treatment of hypertension from $940 million to $120 billion is real, but is not as real as was suggested by the Minister last week, and I'll explain. Minister failed to mention in his presentation that this spending is just around the same amount that was spent in 2014-15, having regard to the exchange rate, which is about $8 million, suggesting that possibly what we have been presented is an underestimation of the gravity of the problem. We know that the NHF procures all drugs for hypertensive treatment from overseas, suggesting that with the genuine increase in this lifestyle disease, which we know to be true, the spending ought to be much more, and therefore begs the question as to whether the health authorities are not capturing all the persons, and there are many persons outside the system who are not captured by this data. The announcement of the expansion of the Spanish Town Hospital, among other institutional expansion and new construction, was also welcome, Madam Speaker. But here's the but, Minister. I remain puzzled, and I cannot fathom in all honesty why the Minister could have caused his ministry to spend so much money on his extensive and expansive visuals in the Parliament, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, when on the very day of his presentation, the medical record staff at KPH were restive over issues related to conditions of work. By the time he began his presentation, the workers were already talking to the media about the poor working conditions, non-functioning air conditioners, and yes, Madam Speaker, unavailability of printer ink to print patients' medical records or make copies of some medical documents. Madam Speaker, something like a printer ink costing between $10,000 to $20,000, depending on the type of printer ink. Additionally, 2 days later, elective surgeries had to be postponed at Cornwall Regional because of the inadequacy of linen. Linen. Surgical linen, cloth. Madam Speaker, a simple and non-costly item such as linen. When the X-ray unit is faulty at the Spanish Town Hospital, and Madam Speaker, it has to be allowed to rest after doing a number of films, and the next set of patients having to wait for long periods to allow that machine to sleep and wake up back before it can do another set of films. When at Cornwall Regional Hospital, their X-ray machine has been down for a very long time, and patients have to be transported to other sites privately, paid for by government, to get X-rays completed, as the portable ones at the hospital cannot do some of those studies. Madam Speaker, I could go on, because there is more. However, I pause to ask the question. We were presented with a picture on Tuesday showing that we are heading in the right direction with many plans to come. And we were told at the same time that due to the lack of funding, some of the equipment could not be repaired. Priority, Madam Speaker, is it about PR or is it about patient care? But what of the present? And what of the now of those patients who cannot wait on the expansion schedules to be completed? What will happen to those patients already waiting on this expansion schedule in 1, 2, or 3 years, or to the much-touted legacy projects which will take even much more time to be completed? Madam Speaker, there are many low-hanging fruits that, if attended to, can result in better health care delivery to the people of Jamaica. The minister mentioned the need for people to get their regular checkups. I agree with him there. He emphasized the need for prevention and articulated a preventative care program. Again, I agree with him on spotlighting the preventative care. But however, do you know, Madam Speaker, that the vast majority of health centers and public health care institutions in this country have no facilities for the client to walk in for a checkup? The clinics held at their respective health centers are either clinics for non-communicable diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or pediatric clinics, immunization days, or of those sorts. Therefore, when the minister announced that people should go and get their yearly checkups, could he remind the nation and the people listening where they can get those services in the public health sector as part of the preventative care? Let us take another example. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer in Jamaica. It is the cancer that causes the greatest number of deaths among Jamaicans. Still, there's no facility for screening the clients who come in and want to be screened by doing the digital rectal examination and the PSA blood test at the local public facilities. Madam Speaker, most of the PSA tests performed in the public sector are primarily as a result of patients undergoing cancer treatment diagnosed years ago and now required to see the progress of treatment intervention. In fact, there are not many labs in the government hospitals which do PSA, and when they are sent to the regional labs from the local hospitals, the turnaround time is usually about 3 months. Madam Speaker, to his credit, the minister's tabled a document that speaks to primary health care reform 2021 to 2030, where he mentioned the need to establish these types of preventative programs. However, My challenge is, what guarantees do we have that this will be done? Many reviews of the primary health care sector have been conducted, such as the 1998 Primary Care Perspective, 1978 Primary Care Perspective, the 2004 Goff-McCarthy Review, and now the new primary health care model. And if one is to go back to 2004, Madam Speaker, to that review, we will discover that not that many of the recommendations have not yet been implemented. Madam Speaker, we're a country of reviews and no implementation. Regarding reviews, where is the study of the regional health authorities done in 2007 to 2008? What has happened to those recommendations, and when will these be acted upon? What also of the task force review commissioned by then Minister Rudyard Spencer? Madam Speaker, last year I spoke about the country's requirement to have more renal dialysis units and the recommendations to have these attached initially to the regional hospitals before expanding further to the Type B hospitals within the country. Minister, many thousands of renal failure patients are being condemned to an early death because they cannot afford dialysis in the private sector. With the rising prices of medical sundries, and as we have seen recently, one should shudder to think of the cost it will attract to do dialysis at a private institution at today's market rate. It is well and good that we speak of the absolute need to prevent these from occurring by the various public health measures advocated last year, the year before, and even in the presentation recently. But we are speaking of the now, Madam Speaker. Unfortunately, no amount of corrective treatment will help those sufferers except renal dialysis. Last year, I highlighted this pressing concern and presented data on patients awaiting treatment. A 4-year wait at KPH and a 2-year wait at University Hospital of the West Indies. The waiting time has not decreased in 2022, Madam Speaker. It might be worse. Against this background, the suggestion is being made, Minister, to include renal dialysis in the public-private partnerships for healthcare delivery, dubbed Enhanced Healthcare Delivery Project, which currently is for diagnostic radiology services. We are making that call so that the many suffering patients out there will be able to get this critical care, as there was no mention of dialysis in the Minister's presentation. Madam Speaker, Cornwall Regional Hospital, stepping a little ahead of myself, Minister. Madam Speaker, the regional health authorities continue to strain the delivery of health care simply because of the top-heavy management structure of these authorities. The regional health authorities review recommended repatriation of some services to the central ministry to save resources because many of these services are duplicated. Freed up funds could be used on actual patient care and or employ more staff. Further, Madam Speaker, it is high time that the Ministry of Health and Wellness removes the operation of laboratories and X-rays from the control of the regional health authorities, and I'll explain why, and implement a centralized control by the ministry. Too often when there's a breakdown, the country is reminded that it is the regional health authorities' concern, and which is invariably due to a funding shortage. If we made the change, Madam Speaker, the ministry could not then act as an innocent bystander in the scheme of things. But more importantly, if there was centralized control with a direct officer responsible and with the support of the centralized monitoring and repair unit, more facilities could be up and running and less downtime, as the operations and maintenance could be computerized with proper schedules. Madam Speaker, the National Health Fund came up for mention in the Minister's presentation, and he indicated to the Parliament that the funding for the National Health Fund is under review, as with the increases in the use of the National Health Fund due to the increase in the NCDs, its viability is now in question. But, Madam Speaker, the National Health Fund has to be preserved and maintained as one source for supporting our healthcare system. It's a national institution which has done a lot of work and will continue to do a lot of work, Madam Speaker. And with the proposed tobacco legislation having some changes that may impact the taxation from this source, there has to be a serious look as to how the viability is protected and maintained. Our view, Madam Speaker, is that the Ministry of Finance should ensure a direct budgetary allocation each year for the National Health Fund to ensure that increased demands on the National Health Fund are matched by increased subvention from central government coffers, and that it is not left up to the Ministry of Health to determine how much the National Health Fund gets. The history of the National Health Fund has indicated the importance of this organization, as without it the country wouldn't be able to access good quality medication at very affordable prices. So whatever proposal is put forward, the end result should be the continued operation of the National Health Fund. Again, as I did last year, Madam Speaker, I'm once again stating that the country needs to get some clarity and updates on the proposed National Health Insurance Scheme. Although this green paper was tabled in 2019, we have not heard anything further 3 years down the road. It seems it has become the norm nowadays to blame everything on COVID-19. Indeed, we recognize the tremendous effort of the Minister and the Ministry of Health to adjust our systems and protocols to confront the COVID-19 pandemic. However, we cannot have essential documents and important policies left behind and blame it on COVID-19. It must be appreciated that with the development of a national health insurance scheme, the financial stresses on the National Health Fund could be reduced. Madam Speaker, Jamaica has since March 2020 been through waves after waves of COVID-19 pandemic spikes. I want at this juncture to thank all the members of the health team, including those at the Ministry of Health, from the Minister down, to the nurses, the doctors, the porters, everybody in the ministers who have worked tirelessly over the past 2 years to keep the health system going. We are a grateful nation, and we owe you all a lot. There have been mixed reactions to the management of the pandemic by the government over the past 2 years. There are many instances, Madam Speaker. Had the government listened to some of the recommendations from different sectors of the society, including the opposition, and elements in the private sector, things would not have been as bad as they were. In the latest round, when the government decided to lift the restrictions on mandatory mask wearing and remove the need for pre-travel testing, the opposition considered the move as short-sighted and even went further to say it was reckless. The suspension of the Disaster Risk Management Act paved the way for the opening up of the economy while exposing the country to the risk of a fifth wave. The government made the foolish move, contrary to all public health lessons, to remove the mandatory wearing of masks in enclosed areas and instead made it a recommendation. But at the same time, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Health and Wellness advised that for the respiratory virus, SARS-CoV-2, suitable public health measures such as hand washing and sanitization were necessary to prevent the transmission of a respiratory virus spread in the air by droplet infection. The absurdity of this new measure, Madam Speaker, prompted one human rights advocate to tweet, quote, "So no requirement to wear a mask in enclosed spaces, but you will be required to sanitize your hands to enter for an airborne virus," unquote. Then to compound the issue, the government also removed the requirement for pre-testing of persons arriving from abroad. This was at a time when the country's largest travel market, the United States, required visitors to their country to be pre-tested, and there was evidence of an upsurge in the number of COVID-19 Omicron B.A2 subvariant occurring in places such as New York City and Florida, two areas from which the bulk of Jamaican travelers originate. The United States has still maintained the federally mandatory mask wearing in enclosed spaces. This was for a population, Madam Speaker, where vaccination rates were more than 65 to 70% compared to our dismal 25% rate. This removal also coinciding with the World Health Organization advising countries across the globe and reminding them that the COVID-19 pandemic was still a present danger and that proper public health measures were required to contain the pandemic. Of course, we are advised that it was a policy decision taken but not grounded in science. So what do we find or do we see, Madam Speaker? Here we see instances of the government speaking out of two sides of its own mouth. In one breath, it advocates that we follow WHO guidelines, and in another breath, it goes against the same guidelines and agency we have been wedded to for so many years, and more so particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. The regional arm of WHO, the PAHO, represented by its representative, Mr. Ian Stein, reminded the country in late March 2020 at a very Ministry of Health and Wellness COVID-19 press briefing that in countries with high vaccination rates, there was a decoupling between cases and deaths in those countries, thanks to the high levels of immunization. He went on to say, and I quote, "However, unfortunately, with less than 25% of the Jamaican population fully vaccinated, any surge is a worrisome issue and could put an additional or renewed strain on the health system," unquote. He further reminded the country that the best defense against COVID-19 and the several subvariants is vaccination and continued public health measures such as mask wearing. Madam Speaker, the vaccination debacle demands some discussion. Minister, are you still engaged in efforts to get the vaccination rates up? There have been piecemeal programs to revamp vaccinations which have not been successful. And earlier this year, Minister told the country that there were some new proposals to increase vaccination and that the country would be advised shortly. Since then, he made a sectoral presentation without even a whimper about vaccination. We still await the announcement of the enhanced program and hope that the many recommendations that the opposition has made in the past will be incorporated into this program. The rising number of cases in recent weeks since the new measures are of concern. However, Madam Speaker, we are equally concerned that the level of testing in the public sector has fallen drastically. Health centers are now reporting that they do not have the staff to do testing on the days when testing is scheduled. Madam Speaker, I want to make it absolutely clear and take this opportunity to make our position clear from the opposition side that vaccination will help in mitigating a health crisis, and that we are encouraging as many Jamaicans as possible to go out and get vaccinated against the disease COVID-19. To those who have their fears and apprehensions, we encourage you to discuss them with your doctor to clear any misconceptions. With vaccination, you are not only protecting yourself, but also protecting the people around you. Madam Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted negatively the childhood immunization program. Jamaica has had an enviable record of childhood vaccination worldwide, both in percentages in the high 90s, in the areas of measles, mumps and rubella, tetanus, diphtheria, and whooping cough, and polio. Many children have missed out on these vaccinations, most due to the fact that the public health nurses were deployed in the COVID-19 fight, as well as the shortage of vaccines. The country is currently experiencing low numbers of COVID-19 cases than we did during the last 4 waves, although the numbers are now inching up. And the government is advised to expeditiously reinstate the usual childhood vaccination at this time to ensure that all children are fully vaccinated, and further, to prevent the possibility of an outbreak of measles, which is currently being experienced in some parts of the world, with WHO and UNICEF reporting a 79% increase of measles in the first 2 months of 2022 compared to the similar period in 2021, and further warning that conditions are ripe for serious outbreaks of vaccine-preventable diseases. The government is also advised to ensure that proper logistic arrangements are in place to guarantee adequate supplies of all childhood vaccines. Yes, Tony, logistics. All childhood vaccinations, more so with supply chain disruptions currently being experienced worldwide, and to prevent a repeat of the shortage of BCG vaccines which the country had last year. Madam Speaker, the discussions on Cornwall Regional Hospital will not be allowed to die. The Minister made heavy weather of my tour, which had not yet occurred when he made his presentation last week. No, man, at that time. No, I know you were. The only thing we didn't get was the food, because we didn't. As I indicated to the media after the tour of the facility, I was satisfied with the current work program. I was. No, I've said it. No, you don't want to hear the but. You don't want to hear the but. Madam Speaker. You don't want to hear the but.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I now ask that the standing orders be suspended to enable the member an additional 15 minutes to complete his presentation, notwithstanding, Madam Speaker, the time limit on speeches. He said he needed 10. I'm asking for an additional 15. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is, and I'm going to use my position as the chair to allow the member sufficient time to complete.
Thank you. Good speaker. Good speaker. Good speaker. Good speaker. Good speaker. I'm going to start over now. I'm going to start over this one. All of the boss. Chris, I'm coming to you now. I'm coming to you now.
Madam Speaker, I thank you. I thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I thank the members. And as referring back to my presentation, where I want to thank you for your guidance and stewardship, Madam Speaker. As I indicated, and to repeat for the purpose of the Minister, after the tour, I was satisfied with the current work. And I expressed it then. But I am expressing my disappointment as well with the delay in getting there where we are now. However, we would have nearer completion if we had followed industry advice from the beginning regarding a work and implementation plan for a project of this magnitude. We are now hearing that barring any major challenge, the hospital will be ready by December 2024. A total of 8 years for complete restoration from 2016. And that, Madam Speaker, is a minimum time. Madam Speaker, it pains my heart, because while we wait for another 31 months, the people of Montego Bay and all of Western Jamaica, including Trelawney, will continue to suffer the indignity of an overcrowded A&E waiting area and be subjected to reduced clinical and medical care. This situation places an additional burden and stress on the staff, who are becoming increasingly frustrated and indifferent to the surroundings. In conversation with a consultant doctor, and I must add, not on the day I went to tour, but he works at Cornwall Regional Hospital, he expressed these words, and I quote, "The desecration of the place has led to apathy among the staff and has contributed to the exodus of good staff from Cornwall Regional Hospital," unquote. The A&E department is under stress. Can you believe, Madam Speaker, that this Type A hospital has only one consultant A&E physician? One consultant A&E physician with such an operation, when such an operation would call for about 5 or 6 consultants in this one area alone, Madam Speaker. These examples, Madam Speaker, support the concern we have always had regarding a Type A hospital like Cornwall Regional with disjointed service. On the budget side, the minister has maintained that the cost to rehabilitate the Cornwall Regional Hospital is still around 5.3 billion, and rubbish my suggestion that it will double that amount. But time will tell, Minister, time. Madam Speaker, the staff problem in the public facilities remain a significant challenge for the country. The high attrition rate of nurses from the hospital as a result of recruitment from abroad has left the operations of these hospitals in serious jeopardy. Last year in my sectoral presentation, I recommended that the government attract and retain more nurses in the system by offering scholarships, paying the yearly cost, and assuming the responsibility of a student loans and bonding those currently graduating. The nurses we are losing have taken loans, and the onerous repayment burden has caused them to look elsewhere. It is not beyond us to find a solution to this problem affecting our healthcare system, and that has been happening for many years. We know that the ministry has bolstered the number of permanent nursing posts in the service, and we support that and say, Minister, find more permanent posts. We again call on the minister to ensure that employment is provided for graduate doctors from the medical schools and provide incentives to those required to work in deep rural communities. And an additional incentive for postgraduate training for these doctors. In some way, this will attract them to fill posts in these deep rural communities. But, Madam Speaker, I think it's now time that we as legislators and constituency representatives recognize that no matter what system we put in place, our people will always want to migrate. Historically, our people have always gone in search of better opportunities. Jamaicans have gone to Cuba. A wave of workers went to Panama to build a canal. Some went to Costa Rica and Nicaragua. Many have migrated to the United Kingdom and United States and Canada in more recent time. Madam Speaker, Jamaicans are everywhere. What is happening to our nurses want to migrate for better opportunities? It's not something new, and it's not something we can stop. It's in their DNA. We need to come to terms as a country with this and put policies and programs to resolve this phenomena in a win-win situation. The world has recognized that Jamaica, that we have become a country where training and qualification and good qualification of professionals have become the way of life. And therefore, governments need to capitalize on this propensity of all our people by making investment and training and development at this level. In looking at this, Madam Speaker, we cannot just confine our thinking just the effects of migrating nurses on the health sector, but it has to be looked at in a holistic manner and the overall impact it will have on the economy and the development of Jamaica. And an example is by looking at what happens to the teachers as well. Look at something holistical in terms of training. We have become a nation where we train and export, but it rotates, Madam Speaker. Something comes back in return, and we need to look at that. Madam Speaker, I come through the minister's presentation, And nowhere, not one word, did I find a reference to the largest trauma hospital in the English-speaking Caribbean, KPH. I did a word check. It cannot be that KPH, which deals with any and all referrals from across the entire island, is allowed to continue rudimentary in its present state. The conditions in many instances are run down. The facilities for x-rays are compromised, and the persistent overcrowding in the wards does not lend itself to proper medical management, despite the Herculean efforts of the medical and the nursing staff. KPH is a national institution, Madam Speaker, and its 246 years of operation as a people's hospital needs to be improved. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the backlog in surgery cases, which was already under pressure from rising gunshot injuries and road traffic accidents. The ministers announced a proposal to privatize some of the backlogs to private hospitals. Although this proposal is important to mitigate the suffering of the waiting patients, I urge the government to proceed with caution. I would advise the minister to examine the experience in the UK with this approach, with the concordat signed with private hospitals in 2000 by then Health Secretary Alan Milburn. Similarly, Madam Speaker, I want to point the minister's attention to the review by the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute, UWI, of 2012 on the decentralization and privatization of health services in Trinidad and Tobago. And I quote from a part of the study entitled, "The Reform of the Trinidad and Tobago Health Services, the Limit of Decentralization." And the quote is, Madam Speaker, "The numerous complaints in the media, the long waiting lists for surgeries and certain investigations led the government to address some of these through privatization, including lab investigation, using private beds, elective and emergency surgeries, and so on. In fact, many of the problems identified by the existing health services that were taken up by the Ministry of Health and decentralized through private arrangements. The results of privatization encourage the government to expand the services to include even those being carried out by the regional health authorities. The government's focus on improving the regional health authorities was diverted to the privatized service, weakening the main healthcare provider, which are the regional health authorities. Resources were therefore used to fund the initiative, which demotivated staff, siphoned off resources from basic health care, and stagnated or stifled the capacity and growth in the regional health authorities." Unquote. Madam Speaker, these two studies should point us in the proper direction regarding the handling of the whole process of privatization of these services. And there are some questions that need answers. What will be the cost? How many entities will be utilized? Who is to carry on follow-up care? And where is this to be done? At the private institution or back at the public institution? Will the public hospitals be radically upgraded in infrastructure and personnel at the same time as these millions are being spent privately? How will the cases be selected and managed, and by whom, clinically and administratively? What of complications, acute or delayed as a consequence of the surgery? And what of medical legal issues? These are just a few questions that need to be addressed before entering such an agreement, Madam Speaker. But, Minister, it was almost interesting and amusing to see your Instagram post on your visit to Port Antonio Hospital on Sunday morning. And he commented in the post, and I quote, hashtag, "no backlog of surgeries." And he's correct. Perfectly correct. However, his technocrat should have advised him that the hospital has been without a surgeon for some time. So there was no booking for surgery cases. Furthermore, most cases for elective surgeries were sent to an Ottawa hospital. Therefore, no cases, no backlog. Nothing wrong with that, Madam Speaker, but it must be correct. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker. I know, but I had to. Madam Speaker, Julian, there's no doubt that we have suffered major setbacks because of the presence of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, however, we are in a very different place from 2 years ago when we were collectively forced into lockdowns and our interaction and relationship with family, friends, loved ones, neighbors, and communities severely curtailed. Despite the overall evidence of the benefit of vaccination, only 25% of our population are nearly fully vaccinated. We on this side will continue to urge our fellow citizens to take the vaccine. Madam Speaker, we're not expected to emerge from these dark years reveling in the sounds of a ticker tape parade. On the contrary, Madam Speaker, the pandemic has revealed the underbelly of our health system and forced us to accept that our people are exposed to significant vulnerabilities. The government, through the ministers, portrayed a good picture, but the sector continues to face critical challenges affecting our capacity to deliver quality and affordable health to the vast majority of our people, especially those marginalized by social and economic circumstances. Today, I try to point out just a few to bring our attention to the plethora of deficits affecting the sector requiring urgent attention. And I sincerely hope that those with the responsibility to act, to change the circumstances of our people in any small way, will be moved into action. I urge the Minister to deal with the working conditions and the state of our equipment in these institutions. In many of our critical facilities, important equipment is in need of repair. Our healthcare staff are constantly in a state of restiveness because too many issues remain unresolved, such as the high attrition rate and the burden of carrying student loan. Madam Speaker, our interests lie with the well-being and health of the Jamaican people. Failing them would not be in character with our constitutional role as an opposition, to hold the government of the day accountable, and to ensure that our responsibility in upholding the best interests of the people of Jamaica is kept. We will not back down from that responsibility, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Madam Speaker, I now ask that the sectoral debate, I want to thank the members for their presentations today and to say I'm very impressed that the member actually did not need any more than 15 minutes. I'm very impressed. You're a man to your word. Good. So, Madam Speaker, I now ask that the sectoral debate be suspended.
Members, the question before the House is that the sectoral debate be suspended. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, there is no intention to have any further business for the day, so at this time I ask for the motion.
Madam Speaker.
Member, could you give me one moment, please? Madam Speaker, I ask at this point for the sitting to be suspended.
Very well. Members, it is not intended to do any other business for today, and therefore we ask for the adjournment of Parliament or for a date to be announced next week. No, tomorrow, Wednesday, the 11th of May. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
On the motion for adjournment, Madam Speaker, as prompted
by the member from St. Mary Western, rightfully so. Madam Speaker, you would have noted in the media reports of an explosion in Havana, Cuba, where so far it has been reported that over 30 persons have died in the explosion. Apparently, a gas leak, it has been said, and several persons have been injured. I have expressed our deep sympathies to the government and people of Cuba, and we want that to be recorded in our parliament. And I invite other members who would so wish to do so to do. The member from St. Mary Western, having prompted, Madam Speaker, I would yield to his expression.
Madam Speaker, let me thank the Most Honorable Prime Minister for affording me this opportunity. And I am sure that all of us in this House would like to express our solidarity and our empathy and sympathy with the good people of Cuba for the traumatic loss that they have experienced. Indeed, Madam Speaker, being our closest neighbor, when something happens to your neighbor, it also affects you. And Cuba has been very good to Jamaica. Equally, Jamaica has been very good to Cuba. And therefore, we share that relationship. And having lost 30 lives and the destruction of a building which has historic significance, it will have shaken the national psyche of the Cuban people. And, Madam Speaker, this House must express its solidarity, because Cuba, over the years, has stood with Jamaica in natural resources, disasters. They have indeed helped to enhance our human resource by offering scholarships to our young students who have come back to contribute significantly to national life. And Jamaica has offered Cuba many, many technical assistance on many fronts. So we do share a symbiotic relationship. And when your neighbor is going through difficult and trying times, a good neighbor lends a shoulder. And I am sure that this Parliament would like to express that desire to say to the people of Cuba that we stand ready to offer whatever assistance. I am confident that the government of Jamaica would have offered the necessary support, would have offered to send them technical people, even our army or police or whatever, if they need it. I'm not sure that they would, but I know that everybody in Jamaica would ask that this be done. So I would ask my colleagues to support and to express our sympathies to the government and people of Cuba.
Madam Speaker, I rise on behalf of the opposition to express our deep solidarity with the people of Cuba and the government of Cuba. Certainly, over the years, the opposition has, even before it was accepted in the West, some might have said it was detrimental to have a relationship with Cuba. But in the 1970s, the government of the day, under the Most Honorable Michael Manley, established that relationship. As a result of that, we have shared not only meaningful relationships in terms of health care. Cuba provides doctors and nurses to our country, but we've also shared extremely good relationships in terms of our educational sector. Cuba has built our schools, several of them. They've given us a sports facility. And there has been no time when the government of Jamaica and the people of Jamaica have called on Cuba that they have not responded. They've given us medication. And even when we don't call on Cuba, the graciousness, the magnanimity of this country has always been kind. Even when under their own circumstances of hardship, they have not had the means for their own people to give to other countries. But their value system has given worldwide service to so many countries that find themselves in an unfortunate situation. When we saw the explosion, for us it broke our hearts, because not only is this country coming out of a very, very untenable situation and a special period as a result of COVID, and we saw what was happening there. But for it to now get back on its feet and this kind of situation to happen, and we saw where the president of Cuba came out and made declarative statements about what it was not. And we stand with the people of Cuba. And I want to thank my colleague and my friend from that side, from St. Mary, for raising this very important issue in the House. And why is it an important issue? It is important because our region is seeing some degrees of upheavals, whether it is in this kind of catastrophe in Cuba. We're also having some kind of political upheavals in some of the smaller countries in our region. And as a nation that other countries look to for support and for guidance, it is important that our parliament signals how we relate to these instances. And I want to use this opportunity as well to say to the United States of America, it is time to lift the embargo off of this country. These people have suffered enough. It is time, when the world is seeking to move away from confrontation and to more reconciliatory efforts to build their people, that these kinds of sanctions on a country that has only helped other people in the world is unconscionable. It is hostile. And you can't suggest human rights for some and not for all. And Madam Speaker, I feel very passionate about it. This side feels very passionate about it. And indeed, I want to commend the Parliament and this government, because when we do go to the United Nations to vote, we vote to lift that embargo. And I want to make sure that this Parliament registers that with our statement. Prime Minister, I trust certainly that yourself and the Leader of the Opposition will continue to make our good voices heard to the people of Cuba. And if there's anything that we can do to assist in helping them at this time, whether it is through food, whether it is through services, that we assist in technical efforts and also in kind, because there has been significant reciprocity over the years between that nation and ours. And I just want to say to the people of Cuba, stand tall, stay resolute. Jamaica is always here to have your back. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, first of all, I want to thank the member for Western Westmoreland for having St. Mary, Western St. Mary, for having, I said Western, for having brought this up today and for providing us with an opportunity to register as a Parliament our sympathies with those who have been badly impacted by this explosion. The issue of the revival of the tourism industry in Cuba is a live, difficult issue for them coming out of COVID, and for this to have happened is a tragedy. Lives have been lost, persons have been badly injured, and we can only hope that they will cope with this as we know they can, because in terms of resilience, the Cuban people and the Cuban government have over many decades shown their capacity to withstand all sorts of very challenging circumstances. The generosity of the Cuban people to Jamaica has been highlighted in the presentations that have gone on already. And it's fairly unique, because it's not that Cuba is a particularly wealthy country. They are not, but they have done so much for us in the areas of sports education, secondary school education, healthcare, training and teaching tertiary level students. And not just since yesterday, that has been going on for many, many years. And the ties between Jamaica and Cuba, of course, go back to the 1800s, when the likes of Garvey Maceo were in Jamaica and went on to become great leaders and liberators in Cuba. There has been a common position across the aisle on the issue of the ending of the embargo, the U.S. embargo on Cuba. And it has been raised again today that we wish to reaffirm our commitment to the cause of the normalization of relations between the United States and Cuba, and in particular, the removal of the embargo. We hope that Jamaica will do what is necessary to encourage, in the upcoming Summit of the Americas, that Cuba will be extended an invitation to attend, as will the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It is just right that if the Americas are meeting, all should be invited, and we don't believe in this differentiation of treatment. But the issue before us is one of sympathy and solidarity for the people and the government of Cuba. And Prime Minister, I saw your Instagram post, and I'm glad that you were able to do that. And again, the man from Western St. Mary, big up and thank you for having raised that today. And I must also say that our spokesperson for Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade delivered a lovely presentation, extempore presentation on this topic, and I thank her for her eloquence today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I would therefore then ask that this Parliament record the sympathies of the members, both those who have spoken, and we take it to be on behalf of all members of the Parliament, and have those sentiments be conveyed to the Cuban government and the people of Cuba.
On the adjournment, no, different subject. On the adjournment motion, there's a national water lock-off, which affects, as you know, critical services like our hospitals, healthcare centers, homes for the aged, schools, etc. It is of major national. I wonder if the Prime Minister or the Pertinent Minister would give an update as to where that matter is, if it has been resolved. Before I came into this House, I never heard of it being resolved.
I somehow anticipated that request of us. And let me advise this Honourable House that as a consequence of what transpired today at the NWC by the workers and the resulting tremendous inconvenience to the people of Jamaica by the water supplies being cut, we convened a meeting and we discussed with the unions the matter and with the key players at the Water Commission with a view to resolving the problem. It will require further It will require further consultation because there are still differences that will have to be resolved. And I will keep the people of Jamaica advised. I've already indicated our distinct I've already indicated our decision to meet, and I give an undertaking to keep the people apprised of the progress or the challenges that are being faced at this time. But I sympathize wholeheartedly with the persons who are denied water supply, of course, naturally, and we'll do everything in our power to try to resolve the issue. And our contribution from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. It has implications for the Ministry of Finance, and as soon as we are able to put a position together that is acceptable, I'll advise this Honourable House and the people of Jamaica.
So, thank you much, Minister, for that update. Am I to understand that the lock-off continues until those further discussions are had, or is it some interim arrangement pending the resolution of the issues for which you spoke?
The fact of the matter is that this could not be continued on a protracted basis, and I'm very pleased to advise that in great part, a great degree, water has been restored. We will, during the course of the negotiations, ensure that everything is done to have that flow of water on a continuous basis while we discuss the matter.
That's right. That's right.
Members, the final question for us as members this evening is that the House do adjourn until tomorrow, the 11th of May at 2 p.m. sharp. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This House is now adjourned.
For little people, it's a really big world. A big world to discover and explore. And because discoveries aren't always easy to understand, little people need help to make sense of the big world. So help them make sense of the world. When you CPG,